this. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah, but we all got time for mathematics. It's everywhere in our lives. Welcome to the Johnson Kendra Video Hour.
But it's not an hour.
Yeah, one of these days we're going to have to make it an hour so we are telling the truth. Okay, quadratic equations. What are we really finding when we're solving a quadratic? A quadratic being solved. Remember, quadratics are like parabolas. And what we're solving is the x-intercepts. Okay, you find the x-intercepts. Sometimes there's two, sometimes there might only be one if you only hit it once. And sometimes there aren't any, but technically there are. And we will talk about that later in the chapter.
So are we graphing to solve today?
Well, you can do little sketches, but we're going to solve by factoring.
Okay.
Because it makes it very accurate. All right, the first part here says, make sure your equation is in standard form and equal to 0. Okay, here's our standard form. And see how it's equal to 0? That's perfect. The next thing you have to do is actually factor it. So that's the unfoiling stuff. And then at the end, we're going to have one more little step. We're going to set each factor equal to 0 and then solve for the x. So, the zero product property. This is kind of our rule that we're going to have to follow. And it says that if a times b equals 0, then either a equals 0 or b equals 0.
Or both.
Or both, right. So that's what we're going to do when we solve these. So the first one, let's see. Okay, the first one says make sure the equation is in standard form and is equal to 0.
It is not equal to 0.
Oh boy, so I need to get it equal to 0. So I want to switch this to the other side. And then I get 2x squared plus 4x minus 6 equals 0. The 6 and the 4 cannot go together because one has an x, the other one doesn't. Okay, the next step is to factor it. Now see how they each have a 2 in common? I'm going to take that out front. X squared plus 2x minus 3. And then I'm going to factor the big parentheses into two smaller ones. So the x squared gets broken into x and x. The 3 is a 3 and a 1. I have a plus 2, so I want to make the 3 plus and the x minus 1 there. Okay, this 2 really doesn't affect anything. We're just going to ignore that for now. The thing we want to do for this is do our zero property. Product property, yes. I need to say that properly.
Properly, zero product properly.
All right, so let's do that. We're going to take this first part is like the A. We're going to set it equal to 0. And then the B part is like the x plus 3. We're going to set that equal to 0. And then we're going to solve them.
Do you need those parentheses?
No, I put them there just to show you that's the A and the B. But when we're done, we don't really need them. So now, solving this, I'm going to add 1. Let's see here. I need to put down. And so x equals 1. There's one answer. And then over here, I'm going to subtract 3, so I get x equals negative 3. So those are the two places on the graph that are going to cross. So if I had 1 and negative 3, my parabola would be going through those two spots.
Oh, okay. Okay. Here's another one. It is definitely not in standard form, and you might be tempted to move the 5 to the other side, but remember, we don't like to have negative a values. So instead, I'm going to move everything to the other side. So I'm going to add the x squared, and at the same time, I'm going to add 4x to both sides.
You're so smart. That was really smart to do.
Thanks.
Save yourself some time.
And then we're going to put them in the right order. Make sure you have standard form. And it is now equal to 0. We have to factor, and depending on what kind of polynomial you have, like in the last one, Mrs. Kendra had to take out a greatest common factor. Here there isn't one. The a value is 1, so we get to do our little simple factoring method, just going right to the parentheses. It's going to be x and x. This is a minus, so we've got one of each sign. Factors of 5 that add up to get 4 will get positive 5 and a negative 1. But we're not done. That's factored. It's not solved. We have to set each factor equal to 0. So that's our A could be equal to 0, or B could be equal to 0, and then we solve them both. So for this one, I get x equals negative 5, and on this one, we get positive 1. I noticed that we get the, kind of like the opposites.
Yeah. Huh. Seems like that happens a lot in algebra. It's in the parentheses. It's kind of the opposite.
Yeah. All right. This is definitely not standard form. I am going to move the 8x over. So it's equal to 0. So I'll have 16x squared minus 8x equal to 0. Now, it's still kind of not standard form. The c value is actually a 0. So remember, we've talked about this. If you have a binomial meaning two terms, and it's not a special case, the only way that you can factor it is by taking out a greatest common factor. So I noticed that these both share a factor of 8, and I noticed that they also have an x in them. So 8x is the GCF. I'm going to factor that out. That will leave me with a 2x, and we are taking out the 8x, so remember to use that minus 1 as the placeholder. Supposed to set the factors equal to 0. This is my A. So 8x equal to 0. When you solve that, you're still just going to get 0. X equals 0 is one solution. For this one, 2x minus 1 equals 0. We will have to add 1. And then divide by 2. So we'll get 1/2. Two solutions.
All right.
You want to do the last one?
May I, please?
Of course.
Okay, standard form again. We got to get that 4x to the other side. So I'm going to subtract 4x.
Ooh, where do you put that?
Yeah, where does it go? Somewhere. The x term usually goes in the middle, right? So that's where I'm going to put mine. So minus 4x in the middle, and then the minus 3 at the end. All right, so this has a 4 in the front. Ooh. Now do we remember how to do it?
4 spots.
4 spots, yes. Drop the first one down, drop the last one down. We have a minus here, right there, so that minus goes one of each. Yay!
One of each.
So we put them there. So we already have our sign down here on the right. Okay, now we take the factors, or the 4 and the 3, and we multiply them together, and we get a 12. We take the factors of 12. Go, Miss Johnson!
1 and 12. 2 and 6. 3 and 4.
And then the next will be 4, but we already have that one. Now, which of those will get us our middle term?
I think it's got to be 2 and 6.
I think you're right. So, we have a minus 4, so I need to make it minus 6 and a plus 2.
So the bigger one goes with that minus.
Right, to make the whole thing negative.
Cool.
All right, next we do pairs here. I'm going to take out what they have in common. I see a 2 and an x. So that's 2x minus 3. Okay, and then we do the same thing over here. Now they don't have anything in common.
But you got to take something out.
You're forced to. So I can take out
A 1.
And then I have 2x minus 3 again. Now that's a good thing because these should match. And now I'm going to take out their common part, which is the parentheses. And what's left are these two. That goes in the other set of parentheses. Now, this is still equal to 0 from the beginning. Now we got to do our little one at a time here. Set each part.
A and your B.
Yep, each part equal to 0. Add 3. So 2x equals 3. Divide by 2. We get x equals 3 halves. That one's done. Subtract 1. 2x equals negative 1. Divide by 2. And we get negative 1 half.
Good job.
Yay, I like doing that. That's fun.
All right.
All right. Good job, everybody. We'll see you in school. Ta-ta.